Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Good Dram Show with me, Chris Goodrum. Right, after last week's little diversion, shall we say, into other alcoholic beverages, i.e. rum, we're back to whiskey this afternoon. So, yep, back on terra firma, so to speak. So what am I going to do this afternoon? Well, it was a few years ago when I was introduced to the actual distillery bottlings of Tomatin, and since then I've really got into what they're doing, and I thought it's about time we had a look at some new releases from them, because the distillery kindly sent me some samples of their new stuff. So I thought, well, let's have a look at them. So that's what we're going to do, and basically, I think I've done a tasting on Tomatin before, so I don't think I need to regale you with any waffle. So we'll just take a look at what we'll be tasting this afternoon. Right, okay, so like I said, we're looking at three of the brand new releases from the Tomatin distillery. The first one we'll be looking at is this is a 14-year-old, and it's been finished in ex-Tawny Port casks. I believe it's matured for, I think, just check my figures, 13 years in ex-Bourbon cask, and spent a year finishing in, like I said, ex-Tawny Port cask, which once held 30 to 40-year-old Tawny Port. So as you can see, the colour's quite light, should be quite a delicate finish. Incidentally, this kind of bottling kind of follows on from last year's. I think it was a 14 or maybe 15-year-old finished in Tempranillo cask, which was absolutely stunning, but due to shall we say a small cock up, one didn't get hold of any. But this year I've certainly got hold of some of this stuff. Well, that's just kind of giving the game away, haven't I? So I'm stocking it, so it's not going to be bad, is it? Okay. So anyway, it's bottled at what was it bottled at? 46%, and like I said, finished in ex-Tawny Port casks. So should be kind of interesting. Second bottling we'll be looking at is the newly released Tomatin 1988, which makes it 26 years old. This is the first batch of this particular vintage, shall we say, and it is limited to 2,500 bottles. Price tag, I think, off the top of my head, about 170 quid, I think. So kind of expecting good things of this. This was finished, and I don't know how long, but I would guess, judging by the colour, probably a similar kind of period, a year, maybe 6 months, in export casks. So, and it has to be said, Tomatin seemed to have pretty good grip on this finishing in wine cask malarkey. So we're expecting good things from that. And finally, it's this one. This one, he says. Right, there's an interesting little story to this. This is the Cu Bocan, which you probably know about, which is Tomatin's peated release. Now, I knew that I think it was back in about 2006 they started playing around with peat yet again, because I believe 4 years later they released a peated malt onto the Japanese market, but we had to wait a few years longer before the first release of that came out, and it's pretty good. So but this is not it. This is something a little bit different, a little bit special, and so what this is well, how can I explain this? Basically, Tomatin's a pretty big distillery. Well, big in scale. I mean, I think it produces somewhere in the region of about 5 million litres of alcohol a year. So it's a relatively large scale distillery. But it's got, I think, about 12 warehouses, and it home to about 100. I think it's about 170,000 casks. And this is as the story goes, that they discovered 3 casks of peated Tomatin that had been distilled in 1989, which had been somehow overlooked, shall we say, for a number of years. And I guess when you've got 170,000 casks in your inventory, it's probably easy to lose the odd cask or two, or forget about them. You know, distilleries change hands, different managers, all that kind of stuff. You know, so so these 3 casks of 20 odd year old peated malt were discovered, bottled, and here we have it. So this should be really interesting. Again, 250 quid, I think, a bottle. So you know, it's got to be pretty good to be worth that kind of price tag. So yeah, so we'll kick on then and start off with the 14-year-old. Right. Okay. So let's see what the nose gives us on this then, shall we? Oh, that is nice. That is really dusty. Actually, quite mature. Getting quite a lot of that sort of sawdusty American oak. Some lovely sweet barley. Again, sort of slightly dusty, slightly polleny. It's got a nice touch of dried fruit and porty notes, but again, it's very very subtle, and it's all just blends really nicely. It's really harmonious. A little bit of fig, dried dark fruits. A little bit of quite a bit of wood spice, that sort of mingling in with that sort of sawdusty American oak note. Really aromatic, lightly perfumed. Really nice maltiness underneath it as well. I've noticed that the Tomatin can be quite sort of malty, and sometimes certainly has an occasional sort of baked fruit kind of character. Certainly when they start using a little bit of sherry, but that is really impressive. That's a lovely nose. Palate. Oh, that's lovely. Really silky. Kicks off with the emphasis certainly on the Tawny Port notes, the dried red fruits, a little bit of licorice, toffee, malt, quite dark initially, and then sort of midway through you start to get the barley coming through, the American oak, and the lovely sort of fresh citrus character. Really long, lovely length, a little bit of dark chocolate, again a bit more malt, and so it's kind of got a really nice progression. You sort of starting off with the wood finish notes, the Tawny Port notes, and they kind of like sort of taper down, and you start to get the American oak, the spirit character coming through, and that is really harmonious, really nice balance. So yeah, that's pretty good, and it's not particularly expensive either. I think it's about 40 something. I think 46 quid. So yeah, really like that. I think that's really impressive. Right. Okay. So on to the new Tomatin 88. Comes in a nice wooden lacquered box and all that kind of stuff, which is what you would expect with a malt of this kind of stature. But anyway, we're not going on about the packaging. It's what's in the glass that counts. So let's stick a nose in the glass and find out then, shall we? Now that has some maturity. Lovely silky barley, a little bit of dustiness. Oh, it's lovely and mature. Again, a little bit of baked fruit, soft spice, and in the background is sitting that little bit of red currant and cherry, a little bit of licorice, slight strawberry conserve kind of note with that little bit of sweetness to it. But it's definitely barley led. Definitely the American oak is the most prominent character of this nose. A little bit of spice as well. A little bit of not a little bit of toffee, almost toffee, but not quite. But it's got a lovely spiciness, real lovely dusty mature spiciness to it. Oh, yeah, that is very nice. Palate. Chewy, lovely finish. Again, kind of kicks off with the port finish. Some slight strawberries, slight jammy strawberryness, a little bit of red currant, but that just then you get the dusty American oak, the barley, the malt, a little bit of licorice, dark chocolate. But very light, not sort of overly chocolatey. Beautifully fresh finish. I mean, again, I think this is bottled at 46%. I think it's bottled at 46%. Again, lovely balance. The alcohol freshens, cleanses, so you get that sort of slightly granity kind of Highland character coming through on the finish, with a lovely sort of soft barley character. And plenty of mature American oak. I mean, that is again just absolutely fantastically balanced. And I mean, we all know how difficult it is when it comes to finishing things, finishing whiskey in wine casks. How long to leave it, not to leave it too long, so it overpowers. And again, I think Tomatin have got that absolutely spot on. It's not too much. It just adds a sort of like that interesting little bit of sort of red fruit character, a little bit of spiciness, a little bit of wininess, which makes it all round an absolutely delightful malt. So I think another big hit. Right, okay, and so on to the Cu Bocan 89, which I just happen to have a bottle here in the collection. Wonderfully packaged. Again, it's packaged similar to, don't know if you remember, I think I did the Decades bottling. I'll just show you, as you can see, lots of blurb about the story of the Cu Bocan, the devil dog or whatever it's called. And each bottle individually numbered on the neck. I love the packaging. I just really love all of this. I mean, this really is pretty impressive. And you just got to love the box and all that kind of stuff. But like I said, I mean, it's not necessarily about the packaging on the outside. It's about what's in the glass. So let's give it a swirl and see what the nose gives us then. That is lovely. Slightly herbal peat smoke, dusty. Again, a lot of barley. It's not mega peated. I mean, certainly even with it when you have an Islay of this kind of age, which is started off its life being fairly heavily peated, that they mellow. It's just absolutely fantastic. Sort of lots of barley. A little bit of a gristiness there. Again, sort of lots of dusty oak. A little bit of malt, and all the while you've got this overriding impression of peat smoke. Elegant, gentle, delicate peat smoke. A little bit of barbecued meat, maybe. some spices, bit of toffee, bit of apple. Lovely, lovely gristy, not gristy, dusty barley. A little bit of herbalness coming through now. And a touch of granite maybe. Oh, that is absolutely stunning. I mean, really, really good. Yeah, I don't just say this because the distillery sends me samples. You know, I mean, like I probably said numerous times before, I just judge on what's in the bottle. You know, if I like it, if I think it's good, I'll buy it. For the shop anyway. Sometimes for myself, as in this case. But that is just absolutely stunning. It's so mellow, so mature. Yeah, it's just got that sort of nose that you just sort of like, you know, can just keep sniffing, and every now and again you'll pick up a new nuance. Lovely honey character coming out now. Quite sort of waxy, beeswaxy kind of honey. But it gets fuller. It's getting a lot more fuller as it's warming up. It's becoming more aromatic, and again, like I said, that honey character is really coming through. The smoke is still there, but it's starting to sort of, you know, be overpowered by the honey. Oh, lovely herbalness. God, that is fantastic. That is an absolute lovely nose. So, power. That's got a bit of an alcohol kick at the end. Yeah, 53.2% is what it's bottled at, but even though it's got a bit of a kick at the end, I mean, that really freshens up the palate. And I don't think you really need to bother with water with that. Oh, dust, peat dust. What a finish. It's just really, really complex. It's lovely. It kind of starts off with the sort of like the dusty peat, wood spices, quite a bit of tannin, dry tannin. You can certainly feel that on the edge of the palate. But again, it's robust. It's full. Plenty of barley, a little bit of honey, a little bit of that sort of fresh granity notes that you often find, or I often find certainly with Highland whiskies. But that is really mouth-filling, and the smoke is just kind of all in the sort of like at the edges of the palate, and just lingers. It's like fog, you know, almost, with the devil dog coming out of the fog. No, I'm getting carried away there. It's impressive. It is lovely maturity, but vibrancy. Yeah, being bottled obviously at cask strength, it certainly helps that finish and gives it that real freshness on the finish. A little bit of herbalness on the aftertaste, but you know, quite dry as well. Personally, I don't think you really need to bother adding any water to that, and I think that is absolutely fantastic. So stunning. Yeah, if you love your old unusually peated whiskies, then certainly worth buying. Right, okay, so let's sum this little tasting up then. 3 new releases from Tomatin. 3 big thumbs up from me, I think. Yeah, really good. Really very, very enjoyable. I think, as I was saying when I was tasting them, I think the 14-year-old Tawny Port Finish is just fantastically balanced. Really, really nice. You know, can't really say much more than that. You get the sort of like the character of the whiskey, character of the malt, a little bit of you know, input from the finishing cask, and you've got something a little bit different, a little bit special. Same with the 1988, although using a different type of port finish. Again, really balanced. You know, a little bit of port character, adding a little bit of sort of spicy, jammy, strawberries, red currants, raspberries, that kind of thing. Yeah, just again something a little bit different, a little bit out of the unusual. And like I was saying, when you use wine casks to finish whiskies in, it is very easy to get it horribly wrong. And I've tasted a number of those that have got it horribly wrong, I can say. But in these two instances, absolutely spot on, perfect, textbook use of finishing in wine casks as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, really, really good. And this little beastie, well, not really much of a beastie, is it? It has to be said. It's not a rampaging peat monster by any measure, but absolutely stunning. Lovely maturity. I mean, I must admit, I think sort of Tomatin is one of those sort of malts that you stick it in American oak cask, leave it for a few decades, and it just comes out absolutely stunning. Yeah, okay, so some of the range, doesn't really do it for me. I mean, certainly, it's funny when you think about it, that I do love American oak finished whiskies, but the one in their core range that I really don't get on with is the 100% American oak aged 15-year-old, which I don't know, don't know, just doesn't really do it for me. It just seems to me that sort of Tomatin works really, really well with sherry. I mean, certainly the 12 and the 18-year-old can be really impressive bottlings. I mean, I've tasted the 12-year-old, which can be a little bit heavy on the sherry component, which dampens it all down a bit, and it can be a little bit overly baked fruit. But by and large, I think that the Tomatin 12-year-old is a really good go-to malt. Really classy. This is just absolutely fantastic. I really, really like this. So there you have it. Can't praise distillery enough. And since, like I said, since we've been dealing with them, they're just really, really nice people to deal with. They kind of pandered to my asking for samples and what have you, which some distilleries don't. So although I was hoping to get hold of some new make peated spirit, just to sort of do a comparison and see what the progression is like from that. But unfortunately, they were a little bit reluctant, shall we say. Like a number of distilleries are not really happy at giving away samples of their new make. But anyway, that aside, I think a really interesting tasting. I think three really interesting bottlings that although like I said, this is pretty pricey. I think it's definitely worth it if you've got that kind of spare cash, shall we say. But equally so, the 14-year-old at about 40 odd quid, I think is very, very good value for money. So there you have it. That's this afternoon's little tasting. I hope you've enjoyed it with me. So all that's left to say is grab your amazingly finished whiskey and good dramming and good afternoon.